Howdy guys, Guts is here with another Warframe build. So as promised, we're going to cover Sirius and Orion. I have been having a lot of fun with these two, and I've got a pretty basic build that'll allow you to use other abilities, no sub-zooms, but there are a few things to get out of the way first. So, first of all, no matter what your choices were in any of the quests, Orion is considered an exalted Warframe to Sirius, which means a couple things. One, it means Orion comes with or specifically Orion comes with an Orican catalyst or an Orican reactor pre-installed. I'm sorry. You'll have to install one on Sirius, but you do not on Orion because he comes with one. Secondly, this Warframe build that I'm about to show you technically requires 0 forma. I have one forma on Sirius to put on Augur Message, but if you really want to use no forma, you can replace Augur Message here with Augur, I believe it's Accord, to get more energy spent on abilities converted to shields and for a little bit more survivability, but if you don't mind missing out on the duration, you can put Accord here to get a bit more survivability instead and not need to use a single forma. The same goes with this build. If you want to replace this mod slot right here with Archon Vitality to use with Arcane Hotshot, that also requires 0 forma. Again, I just have one on here so that I can put on Augur Message without having to change this to another polarity. Similarly, Orion himself also does not need any forma for a pretty good build. I'll let you look at that. We've got Umbral Intensify, Augur Secrets, Augur Message, Blind Rage, Primed Continuity, Stretch, Augur Reach, and Primed Flow. What you're mainly going for is, obviously, you want Primed Flow on everything. It's more energy max, but you want as much range as possible without sacrificing duration, strength, any of that stuff. You want as much strength as possible and as much duration as possible, again, without sacrificing range, strength, any of that. You can sacrifice efficiency because even though there's not any energy orb generation within their kit, you get 45% ability efficiency all the time when you're playing them, because if you constantly swap between the two to cast their abilities in order to get access to their ultimate, you'll be getting a lot of efficiency that way. And because it's 45%, even with one Blind Rage, you're still going to hit about 90% efficiency. Or Blind Rage and no efficiency mods, you're still going to hit 90% efficiency on most of your abilities, casts. Also, when below 50 energy, Sirius and Orion, whichever one you're using, will steal energy from each other. That also helps with their energy economy. Still, I have Arcane Energize on both of them just to make sure they don't run out of energy, especially Orion with his black hole is pretty you'll be casting the black hole a bunch, and you'll also be casting his one and Sirius as one as well to move the black hole around. And that can take a lot of energy if especially you're running low efficiency like this and you're not switching often. If you are switching often, you could probably switch this out for something else. I wouldn't recommend Hotshot on Orion specifically, because the only ability that inflicts heat on Orion is his black hole, the Event Horizon, and that's more useful as a grouping tool rather than as a damage tool. But because Sirius has Jade Stars, which effectively launch homing fireballs, kind of like that one Decree and Deviri whenever you shoot your weapons, Arcane Hotshot actually really helps with that to increase the weapon's crit chance. Anyway, and then for Sirius, again, much the same as Orion. The only differences are Archon Intensify instead of Umbral Intensify, because Orion is able to heal with his third ability, and so you end up getting more strength in the long run with Archon Intensify than with any of the Umbral mods. And then again, Archon Vitality or Augur Message, depending on if you're using Hot Shot or not. Now, let's show off what they can do. Although, first of all, make sure that those explode and don't cause any issues. All right. If you start with Sirius, you'll want to first swap to Orion. That way you can cast Light Sanctuary. This will give you the damage reduction right off the bat. And again, every time you swap, your next two ability casts will have 45% efficiency. Cast Jade Stars. Go back to Orion to cast Astral Shell for some survivability. These are all enemies with Overguard, but normally, even with enemies, like in normal gameplay, you would just cast that to group enemies, and then you can swap just to get to your 7 constellation stars. And now this is where the real fun begins. Just aim at enemies you want to destroy, and because Orion armor strips as well with his 1, another reason you're going to be using Orion's 1 a lot, it can deal quite a bit of damage. And that didn't kill absolutely everything. These backline enemies that didn't get hit with the Orion 1 that were still armored didn't quite get destroyed, but you can deal with them in other ways. Even if you're not building towards their ultimate, Sirius and Orion's abilities are still very versatile. So if you want a 1 or no forma build, you've got those going for you. And then you can I encourage people to experiment. I'm certainly not the best build crafter. But that's how I've been playing them. And if you were recommendations for Zub Zooms, I'd say one ability you could probably replace is Astral Shell for something else. I know, or like Nourish, Roar, like the typical sub-zooms are good choices. Because all that Astral Shell really does is survive a little bit of survivability and threat level control. So if you feel like you need more damage, whether through Roar, Nourish, Shata's Whisper, subzooms like that, this is probably the ability you'll subzoom off. I'm sure there's also builds where you don't have to use Celestial Clash, and I think I keep this on just because it's super cool. But there are probably builds where you can take off Celestial Clash for another subzoom and get a few more results from them as weapons platforms rather than casters. Again, I don't want to really mess with that. I don't really, if I can help it, I don't subzoom things. So this is what I've got going on for builds. Share your builds in the comments, and that'll be it. Take care, everyone.